Hello, this is Zeitgeist Philadelphia Radio, call ID number 91812 on TalkShoe. We are here this evening with Jarrett and Adam from the Zeitgeist Maryland chapter. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey Kevin.
Doing great, thanks Kevin.
I had first invited you guys on because I was hoping to hear a bit about like what things you guys have been doing as a chapter, just so that like people know what it's going to be like to be a part of a chapter in the first place. I know you guys just finished Z-Day about a month ago. You had you did a couple of presentations down there.
We did indeed. Our keynote speaker was Charles Eisenstein. We had a great opportunity. We worked with, actually, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Transition Town folks out of Media, PA, but we had a connection through there who had spoken at our Zeitgeist Day last year, who was actually Charles's booking agent. So we had the opportunity to get Charles Eisenstein down and speak to us. There was an accident along the highway, so he showed up a little bit late, but all in all, it was a really positive event for us. And that's a good example of the kind of activities that we try to do. In the past 2 years, I guess, probably primarily, we've been focusing a lot on outreach and trying to diversify a little bit. So our Z-Day 13 was pretty diverse. We had everybody from Lee Camp was there, Adam Kokesh, who's has a libertarian podcast, Transition Town. We had Occupy there. So we had Solidarity, the socialist organization there. They've got a group out of Baltimore. So we really had a pretty broad range of folks represented at the table, and that's something we've been trying to focus on, just to broaden our demographic a little bit and show that we're willing to participate in the activist community, and not just be insular and self-contained under the Zeitgeist banner.
And one of the good things about that approach, too, is it creates opportunities for us as a chapter to go out to these other groups when they have events, and we'll do tabling sessions with them, either if they're doing a film screening for their group or if they have some sort of festival coming up. So it has been mutually beneficial for all of us.
It's kind of been the same way up here in Philly. At least that's how things started to evolve when it came to Occupy. Like, we were able to get a really good feel of all the different groups that were also very aware and bringing their different issues to the table. There's also a group up here called Truth, Freedom, Prosperity, who I had a couple of episodes ago did a show with Mark Passio, who is very strong in that community, and he's also it's libertarian and also for the most part, and it's kind of amusing that like they had a really great setup at Occupy, and it definitely helped bring about an understanding between a lot of different groups back then. However, the leader of the Zeitgeist, or not leader, I should say, but the guy who was the founder of the Zeitgeist Philly originally, and one of their members actually became a couple, and after a family tragedy, they which like we really love and appreciate Danielle and Mike Randazzo was the guy who had started our chapter originally, and I'm kind of now picking up that role to as a coordinator to try and also get people to get involved and figure out where we're going to head. So where exactly are you guys headed next when it comes to your chapter? Like, what do you have in the pipeline?
Adam, you want to get that one started?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things we did was we're really refining our online presence. One of our chapter members, Al, has done a ton of work lately to kind of make our web presence more appealing. I guess revamp it. So we have a brand new website that just launched at tzmmd.com. And then we started out social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram, so that we're putting more content out there, trying to reach out to the folks in the area on a more frequent basis, and just have that online presence a little stronger for us.
Yeah, Adam said it really well. We're just trying to produce as much original content as is possible, encourage our members to do the same. If they're writing articles for a website, that they've got blogs that are very sympathetic with the Zeitgeist message, we try to amplify the voice of our chapter members, and we're trying to put as much out there as possible and just stay continuously visible. So we've all, many of us in the kind of the core group of the chapter, all have side projects that we are working with to try to repackage the information a little bit and get it out as broad as possible. We've also got a pretty neat project coming up that is, we're calling A Day in the Future. So it's asking our members to envision what a day would look like in a future NLRBE. So just take us through what your day looks like from the time you get out of bed till when you go back to bed in the evening. And then we're hoping to splice that together and put it out as a nice polished video, kind of similar to the Why I Advocate for the Zeitgeist movement theme that went around back early on in the movement history. So something like that. But we're always just trying to keep content coming out of the chapter and sharing that information as broadly as possible.
That's a really great addition to the why I advocate for the Zeitgeist movement as well. I think that's a really positive example, and I hope that it does continue to go further. I have been taking some classes online on Coursera, and one of the listeners, hopefully this evening, will be a gentleman from Nigeria who I'd begun speaking with, and he was asking a lot of questions about the Zeitgeist movement, and I had, since he is in a place that doesn't actually have a chapter, so as to get him kind of on his way to starting one in his area, I had told him originally to go through the orientation manual and go through as many of the videos as he can on the toolkit that's at the Zeitgeist movement, and I thought that they were very good resources for someone who was starting out. I've personally found them to be invaluable to help rediscover all this information, because I personally, after the whole Occupy thing had happened, I kind of took a step back from all of my activism to do some writing, and now that I'm getting back in the swing of things, this has been a really great refresher course, and I'm really glad that they have all these resources already set up and available. So the fact that you guys are then now also putting out more content to add to that, I think, is also a very valuable addition to everything, and it's been even suggested that we can copy information as well and rebroadcast it in our group's name as well, just to be able to get the information out into different venues that may not have heard it before. So I'd like to encourage people to also do that. What other types of things do you guys really try to encourage people with? Like you were saying, how you try to amplify the voices of your own team, and I'm really curious as to how you go about that.
So I think one of the...
Go ahead, Adam. Go ahead, Adam.
So I think one of the ways we try to encourage folks to have ownership with their ideas, as well as be supportive of those. We have some folks that are at college, and we always say it's a great opportunity to start a university subchapter, hold a screening there. So in addition to the resources you had mentioned, there's tons of stuff at tzmchapters.net. The whole chapter guide and really a bunch of activist ideas that's really geared to people looking to start up a chapter and trying to find out more information about how to become active. So that's another great resource for anyone looking to, if there's not something locally in your area on how to get started. but overall, it's just really being there to support the chapters, to give them the information that they need for any team members that come up and want to do something. There's typically a short list of things that we always have for people that want to get involved in, just something as simple as doing business cards. That's always an easy thing you can get someone to do. We give them some of our promo materials to pass out, and anything along that line that really just gives them something, gives them a task, a takeaway as to how they can start being active with really not a lot of overhead and not a lot of effort.
Yeah, so Adam mentioned support, and I think that's just such a huge thing for people nowadays. With the 24-hour news cycle that you see, and especially online information, it's just, we feel that we've come to determine that it's critically important to have folks that are generating original content, because if you're working with information from years ago, you're going to get washed over pretty quickly. So you've just got to have an abundance of solid material that you can keep broadcasting. So we kind of just try to serve as a support network. Like Adam said, we've got a number of folks that are in college, and we are encouraging them that if they're a poli-sci major and are working on their final thesis or something, by all means, go ahead and post that to the chapter. So we've got two Facebook pages. One is just kind of our general broadcast, where we're doing just a lot of open sharing, and it's more of a one-way kind of transmission where there's not a whole lot of dialogue that happens there. And then we've got our chapter page, which is where we try to continuously foster discussion. So we've got, we're approaching 320 folks on there, which we're very proud of. And we've had some great conversations. Sometimes you'll post on there something that you think is going to be engaging and really fire off a conversation, and it fizzles. But sometimes then we'll have strings we'll have threads that are 60 and 70 posts long, which is great. If we can't be a support network for each other, and encouraging each other to constantly learn and challenge their preconceived notions, and challenge them to continue to be more active within the movement and just in the general broader context of life, then really what are we for? We're just talking into the wind. So we really try to establish a sense of community that gives folks the space to be able to put out some content that maybe they're not 100% on. Maybe they're not sure if it directly aligns, or maybe they're looking for some constructive criticism. So we really try to create a safe, respectful place for them to be able to do that, so that they can continue to grow as individuals.
Have you done any town hall meetings yet?
We've had quite a few, and typically we try to hold the town halls essentially once a quarter, where we have some material to present to folks. We invite the chat members to come in and try to keep a relatively open format, or at least a fair amount of portion of that reserved for people that want to voice their concerns, or voice their ideas or opinions, or what they think the chapter should be doing. So that's one of the main formats that we have. We also have more focused meetings on specific topics for Z-Day planning or media festival planning. So yeah, we try to keep things switched up so that we always have something new going on. One of the things we also do is we do some social events as well, a couple times a year. So it gives people multiple opportunities to engage on a level and to a degree that they feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, I would second that. So we try to present a range of events. So the town halls. The town halls are typically a little bit smaller than some of the events where it's either a social engagement or where we're going together with another organization and co-hosting events. They do tend to be more focused. It's generally the people that are pretty on point with the information, and just want to do deep dives on specific issues, which is good. But we do always try to make sure that our yearly calendar includes a pretty broad range of types of events. to appeal to everybody.
So, admittedly, my part in the chapter originally, before, like I'd mentioned, things kind of like slipped apart with Occupy. It was I don't want to like completely blame myself for the group falling apart, but my stepping back seemed to not help group cohesion. Besides the idea of the obvious of people just continuing to stick to it. Because sometimes people do need to take a step back. I mean, the problems will tend to likely still be there once they come back, and at least they still were for me, at least when I took my year off to write rather than do activism. But I'd like to know, how did your group fare through Occupy, and how does your group in general work on its cohesion when it comes to like sticking together and building a base of people that actually come out on a regular basis?
It's tough. There's no doubt about it. When people are faced with schedules like most of us have these days, it's pretty near impossible to establish yourself as someplace that people are going to want to invest their time when they're so well taxed with everything else. So in general, I'd say we just try to keep it as positive as possible, try to keep it as productive as possible, and cohesion's a tough one. Like I said, we're approaching 320 chapter members on the Facebook page, but those town hall events we're averaging about 12 to 15. So there are certainly a good number of people, even worldwide, that are sympathetic to what Zeitgeist is all about. Activating those people is another thing entirely. And so different people have different passions. Adam mentioned Elle earlier. She's not one that really enjoys being at the tabling events, for example. That just doesn't really suit her vibe. So that's another aspect of making sure that we're providing a broad range of activities, ideas, projects, all those kind of things, so that we can have as many folks feel comfortable and feel at home and feel a sense of community with the movement. As far as Occupy, I wasn't around for all that, so I'll let Adam speak to that.
So, I think we fared okay at Occupy. We, one of our Baltimore City coordinators, Ian, he held the General Assembly one night. So, and I was down there myself with the Zeitgeist flag, early on in the Occupy Baltimore camp on a march. So, again, it's one of those things where it's an opportunity to meet at least like-minded people, right? So I don't think it really caused any disturbance to us. And for the most part, we have a pretty strong core group, and I think this is a theme that we see in other chapters globally. Typically, there's a core group that really I guess keeps the consistency going, which is great for the other folks who may not have as much availability. To see the same faces and to see that things are still going on. So, the dedication of sort of the core group to keep the ball rolling is really critical to maintaining success as a chapter.
What do you think are some of the real key elements that you really think a chapter needs? I mean, I personally couldn't have really done as much as I did back then, especially with tabling, as I think I did without some of the hardware that was kind of given to me in the first place. Like, I was lucky enough that the group had, when I had gotten involved, the group had purchased a DVD burner, and I had fortunately had the time available, so I actually sat around and helped burn 600 plus DVDs, and as part of the tabling events that we would do on First Fridays here in Philly. And it's definitely was an investment that had to be remade, unfortunately, because the original thing had gotten used so many times that it had broken down, and I had to get a new one. I felt like obliged to the group to purchase a new one. And fortunately, it wasn't that expensive. It's only around $60 or so. But these are the types of like resource investments that I had to put into. What have you folks down there had given to you essentially by your members? Like, how do you fare in your resources when it comes to your collective down there in Maryland?
So I think we're pretty well off, and we've had plenty of times in the past where folks have created their own media or printed up flyers and brought them out, or did their own DVDs, and then we kind of throw them in the communal bucket to hand out at the next tabling event. So it's great when you can reach out to different members, because some have different types of resources they can offer. Some folks have a lot of time and that they can put into the chapter. Others do have money, for things like tents and whatnot. So a good example of that is we had a chip-in widget that we put up about 2 weeks ago to purchase a new WordPress theme for our website, and it was fully funded by one person in a couple hours. So as long as you have a way to reach those people that are out there that may not have the time to put into the movement, but would mind helping out in terms of the resources and the stuff that the chapter needs to be productive. If you can reach out to those folks, they can be an untapped asset for you.
Yeah, I don't want to dive too deeply into the murky world of capitalism, but it's I think we really see ourselves as providing a service for our chapter members. We like to think that what we do and our efforts are something that benefit their lives in a positive way. So by using the chip-in widgets, by just being open about our financial needs, we've done pretty well. And that's not to say that we've got a surplus by any means. We have yet to break even on an event. So a lot of the resource just comes down to frequently some of us being passionate about the movement and being fortunate enough to have a couple extra bucks to spare to be able to book a library for an event or to buy 250 business cards. But I think first and foremost, we're always explicitly clear about the funding requirements, what our spaces cost for venue space for hosting events. When we're doing a tabling event, the same thing. If we are looking like a table skirt, we've been chasing a table skirt for about 3 years now, and the things are about $120, and none of us have just been willing to front the money. But it's been out there. Everybody sees the design. We post the designs online and show people what we're working towards, and are just right up front with everything. And so far it's kind of played out pretty well for us in there.
What other aspects of the chapter do you find I'd say the most challenging of keeping things going and keeping things like, have you had personality conflicts, and how have you dealt with them, that sort of thing?
So personality conflicts, sure. Any organization of any size, I'm sure, has that. Again, I come back to that, creating that safe space. So we work very hard at trying to keep the general tone of anything that the movement, that the chapter posts online, or any discussion that we have, very positive. We try not to get sucked into real heavy debates. If something is obviously a heated issue, where we, for example, a town hall meeting might go askew with two folks kind of going to bat over a particular issue. We work really hard to de-escalate those things and keep it as positive and productive as possible. I think that's just a prerequisite to be able to really engage the community on the scale that we want to engage, is to be very cautious about the image of the movement, about our brand recognition, basically. We had, with the whole Venus Project split, we had a real potential for the Zeitgeist movement to kind of spiral into oblivion, and I think it was the careful attention of the folks at that time to be able to kind of repackage, regroup, and make sure we could have a productive way to move forward.
That was definitely a difficult transition. Like, our Philly group had been working with the New Jersey group as well, and we were trying to work out like a laser tag benefit that was going to go towards the Venus Project, and then the split had happened a few weeks ahead of time. So it became difficult to kind of keep everything together at that moment as well. So cohesion for everything was definitely it was not prime real estate for getting the job done, unfortunately, and we still muddled through it, and it was still a fun event. We still we didn't make any money off of it, like, so we weren't able to actually send anything down, but like 75 people that would have never probably heard about the Zeitgeist movement or the Venus Project, or had the opportunity to even play with a Tesla coil that Mark, whom I'd mentioned earlier, through Truth, Freedom, Prosperity, had brought their like little Tesla coil, and people were able to play with it. And it was a fun event, and we got a lot of information out to those like 75 people that did show up. And it was a lot of fun, but it definitely was not as much as we were hoping it would have been, and maybe it even could have been, had that split not happened precisely when it did. It was definitely a matter of bad timing, and it was, but like, we held it together, and we had the event still, and we even kept with the initial ideas of where we were going with it. And how long have you been a part of this, actually? I mean, for me, like I said, I've been on and off for like pretty much since 2008. I mean, have you both been involved with the Zeitgeist movement that long?
So I have been with the movement since the start. I mean, after the second film came out, there was if you went to the Zeitgeist movement website, it was a little mailing list for people that wanted to start a chapter. So I was fortunate enough to be part, from the beginning. So I saw a lot of the development. And Jerry, how long have you been, I guess, with the group now?
First time I was introduced to the group was at D-Day 2012.
So you're a much newer member.
I am. So I saw the first film around that same time, 2008, and just really watched the subsequent two films as soon as they came out, and really just spent a while internalizing all the information and coming to terms with it. And then when I finally reached out to the Maryland chapter for that Z-Day 2012, at that point I was fully on board and looking to pull the trigger. And Adam was gracious enough to embrace that and put me right to work, and I've been going strong ever since.
Right on. What were some of the things that you had to really mull over in order to get you where you were finally able to accept it, if you don't mind my asking?
Sure. So I grew up in a very conservative family where religion was very important. Went to church twice a week, Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings. So the religion thing obviously really hit home. And I always say that my progression was the movie The Matrix in '99, the movie The Fight Club in whenever that was, 2001, and then Zeitgeist, the first Zeitgeist. So I had always felt as a preteen and teen and young man that something was missing, but I could never put my finger on it. And the first film really helped do that for me. And then I kind of went just just similar to the documentary series, I kind of went into a dark place for a little bit, and spent a long time trying to really get to the bottom of the problems, which I think is a natural progression. I hear a lot of chapter members tell similar stories. So it was really just kind of coming to terms with the limitations of what we as individuals can control, and a real big question of what good is this knowledge. So you go down this rabbit hole, you find yourself in a dark place, and then what? And many philosophers were sent to an early grave because they were unable to find a response to the question of what is life for. So I think it was, for a long time for me, it was just about understanding those problems and seeing how deep that rabbit hole went. And then with the second film, and then starting to find a community of folks that were all working in a positive direction, that really appealed to me. But it still took a little bit for me to warm up to that idea and to crawl back out of that hole and say, okay, now I know what I know. I can't unknow the things I know. What am I going to do about it? So it was really just working through that internal process, and coming to terms with the information, and then deciding what I wanted to do about it.
And Adam?
For myself, I guess I really got started in 2006, 2007, working as a volunteer on Ron Paul's first campaign, or his 2008 campaign. So when I was working on that, when I had first seen the first film, so a lot of the threads and themes with the Federal Reserve, those were all ringing a bell with me. So that really is what caught my interest in the first film. And then I guess the second film, which is really what sparked the movement, was I've always had a deep sense and a deep passion for science technology. It's my field of study, and that's to see problems be approached in the scientific method like that. That was just it was a light bulb that went off for me. I was like, why aren't we doing that? And it was really what motivated me to do everything I could to move forward with these ideas.
I guess, Adam, this would probably be more for you as like one of the more longtime members. How does your group help foster the continued education? I mean, if you've been around longer, it would be assumed generally that you'd probably know a little bit more about the movement that's going on and a lot of the information behind it. But then again, like if somebody went through and just watched everything on that toolkit in like a month, I mean, they could do a lot of catch-up work. And I'm kind of curious as to how you get that sort of ball rolling. Even how well is Jarrett doing on his knowledge of the information that needs to be presented in comparison to where he was when we first started? I guess would be something I'd like to even ask. If Jarrett doesn't mind putting him on the spot.
So I think Jarrett knows the answer to this already, but he was the first time I met him at Z-Day, he was like a shining pupil, and he just engaged the group at a level for someone first coming into the movement that I personally hadn't seen before. So he sort of came in as an expert, having considered these ideas, and he was just one of those folks that got it. So for him especially, coming in, we were not very far off base in terms of his knowledge, his understanding, and really understand the motives of the chapter and what we were working towards.
Yeah, so I had spent a lot of time with the information, so I'm probably a bad example. Like I said, when I finally decided to engage the chapter, at that point I knew this was something I wanted to invest energy in, and was raring to go. But I think you bring up a good point with just the broader question of how do you engage the information, and how do you promote the education of what we're trying to talk about. I'm sure that the Philly chapter it sees the same thing that we see in Baltimore. In a very urban setting, you've got, at our tabling events, we'll have anybody from technology professors to homeless people walk by our table and engage us, and you've got to. It's very tricky to try to know how to cater the message on such a wide range. So education is of course the core driving mechanism of the movement. So that's something we spend a lot of time talking about. Recently, we had the opportunity to go into Towson University and talk to a sociology class that was specifically about activist movements. That was a great opportunity. We spoke for about 20 minutes, and the students were kind of a little bit glazed over. But then after we did our presentations, Elle and I just sat at the front of the classroom and had another 45 minutes worth of Q&A, which was fantastic. But it's a challenge. I don't think it's enough to be able to have a good online resource to be able to point people to, because some of the information is so dense that if you're just interacting with it the first time, it's very easy to get turned off or overwhelmed or just kind of steamrolled by the level of a lot of those lectures. So, and again, this in a very urban environment, this is something we really have a long way to make up that middle ground in between where our folks are starting from and a Peter Joseph's sociology lecture. So that's something that we continually work on.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that. I considering that, when the split had happened, it was partially over that specifically, like the knowledge base and education of the membership. It seemed like was one of the partial bones of contention, and it's good to see that that's being continuously addressed and that people are really having those extra conversations and getting involved in such fashion that they start to really consume the knowledge on a level that they can take it in at. You're right, it is a great resource to have online, but it is definitely kind of impersonal. It's not like having like another live person to like talk to and engage the information.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. So the thing that we try to do at our tabling events, and we do probably four or five a year, is try to, as quickly as possible, determine what the passerby's interests are. Fortunately, the message of Zeitgeist is broad enough that just about anything that somebody's passionate about can be incorporated into our line of thinking. So we try to identify as quickly as possible what those passions are, what the middle ground is, and start the conversation there. But you have to meet the people on their level. So again, to have events where you are showing a series of lectures is great, but that requires a pretty high threshold for the entry into the information. And that's why we really enjoy our tabling events, because it gives an opportunity to kind of do a vital check, I guess, on the population and see what the issues are that they're most passionate about over any given year, and see where just the general kind of conscious climate, if you will, is at, and see what kind of a message will best play to the population for any given year or any given time.
Right, and just to tack on to that, I think that's a huge point, and one of the things that chapters really need to have as a pretty big focus of why we exist as a chapter is to make sure that the ideas and are always relevant. So, when Occupy was happening, we had a great platform to kind of give our speech and talk to people about that. Keystone Pipeline, that's another topic that comes up that we can always engage with the group and start the conversation. So there is a bit of adaptability. You have to sort of gauge when you speak to people what really what aspects they're interested in as a good way to approach the material. But if you have that flexibility when you speak to folks, you really can come at this from pretty much any angle to something that they'll personally identify with. So it's definitely an ongoing exercise to look at the current state of events and find out what folks are passionate about, what they're interested in, and being able to adapt our message so that it's something that is relative to what they're looking for.
Yeah, if I can throw a quick story in that, this exact thing happened to me 2 weekends ago when we were tabling at an event in Baltimore called EcoFest. I was approached by 3 people. They were all women. The first was maybe in her mid-60s, and the 2 that she had with her were probably 11 or 12. So she said, "What is the Zeitgeist movement all about?" And I started to go into my spiel, and she said, "Whoa, I'm asking for them. Explain it in a way that they'll understand." And that was such a great exercise for me. It was like a punch in the face at the moment, or in the moment, but it was such a great exercise to be able to find a way to relate to somebody that's much younger than we typically engage with in a way that they can understand.
I understand that completely. Yeah, I have interesting conversations with my son often, and I really like engaging this information with him. He's been really obviously like a large inspiration for why I do all of this in the first place, and why I've gotten involved myself is really to make a better world for him, of course. And in that process of explaining things to him, we've done everything from like playing with Legos, and I'd explain like why we'd add on like windmills and stuff like that. And it's these types of fun opportunities that are definitely things that can be taken a hold of at a moment's notice, and that like opportunity for learning can really be grasped if you can get the information across properly. How did you actually do that? I mean, like, what did you say to these kids? I'm kind of curious.
So we talk that EcoFest is a sustainability celebration. It's the culmination of a week-long series of events centered around Earth Day. So I was able to use the food thing, which is one of our go-to lines in Baltimore, is to talk about the food situation, how it's estimated that in America we waste approximately 40% of the food that we produce, and in the meantime there are folks worldwide that are starving of hunger. And that's just when you start asking the questions on something that's as personal as food and starvation, that really seems to click. So, there are folks that we talk about maglev trains with, and, the Tesla information. Anytime we get somebody that's experienced with the Tesla information, we always have a good time with that. But the food is one that we've found really good traction with, that is kind of, you can transfer that conversation to anybody's level. So that's where I went to it with it.
And Adam, were you at the event as well? I mean, did you have any positive experiences from that event as well?
Yeah. So one of the conversations that Jared and I both had with someone that came up, we had an ex-hippie come to the table that day, and we had a pretty long conversation about really about what the activist community can learn from the older generation that sort of has gone down this path before. So it's just every time we do the EcoFest event, we always have something valuable conversations and valuable contacts that come out of it. So there's always opportunities, especially in an event where like Jared said, people are already primed to be of that state of mind. Not all the table events we do we have such a warm reception or people is interested to talk to us. That's why the green festivals and things like that, they're really rewarding to go out to those type of events and to talk to people that are sort of already halfway there.
How do you guys break the news to new people about how this isn't going to be something that's going to happen overnight? I mean, yes, it could be something that the world could flip like an Othello board, and we could be instantly in like a decade, everything could be really different, and we could have a lot of these systems of sustainability created. However, it would take a radical shift in consciousness on a level that is. We need a critical mass level of that in order to make those sorts of people with this kind of knowledge to make that sort of leap. And in order to do that, it's definitely going to take a while for people to get this information. How do you break it to new members when they get that feeling they're like it's going to take forever or it's never going to happen, or I mean, do you have members that you've come across that have don't see things progressing fast enough or unwilling to accept that knowledge that it's just going to take a lot, maybe even decades worth of advocacy as such to be able to get this information out to the world? And how do you guys help people deal with that?
So I think we've absolutely had some folks come in and work with the chapter and start to get downtrodden or after feel like they're not seeing any measurable progress. And again, part of being a chapter is being there to support those team members when people feel like that, because I mean it happens to all of us. Sometimes we feel like our efforts are futile, but one of the things that we also try to do is to challenge them, right? Because everyone has that part to play that wants to be in a chapter and be an activist. You have to help direct that energy to a productive output. So challenge them. The more people that they go out and talk to, the better that we're doing is spreading the message. And the more they want to put into it, the faster along these changes will happen. So I do understand the fact that some folks may be disenfranchised if they they don't see this happening since the movies came out. But ultimately, it's on us to make it happen.
Yeah, I think you shed light on one of the greatest challenges, as I see it, with our movement and with this information. We're really playing the long game, and that's tough for us. Earlier I referenced the 24-hour news cycle. It's very tough for us to conceptualize something that would require immediate actions today, but won't be fully realized and won't really show their full potential until maybe 100 years down the road. And how do you get people to pull back the lenses is one of the phrases I use often when talking about this information. To be able to encourage them to take those actions that are required today and right now to be able to influence the future in a very real way. And I think the climate change movement experiences this a lot too. So everybody's against the Keystone XL pipeline, but at the same time, if you're not actively working to make the transition to renewable energy, then you're kind of talking out both sides of your mouth. So it's difficult to be able to instill in people the excitement that they get with the short-term reward on investment, if you want to call it that, when we're really trying to paint a picture that is much further out. You said earlier, Kevin, and I fall into the exact same boat, that things really started to fall into place with the birth of your children. I've got 2 kids, and prior to that, it was my wife and I, and the rest of the world could fall to pieces as far as I cared, because my I guess time frame was just much shorter. Now that I've got 2 little guys, I'm wondering about the world that we're leaving for them. So I think that certainly that message plays well with people. But this is it's the challenge of we're in a very distracted age. We're inundated with information constantly, and to ask or expect of people to have them really forecast their actions far into the future is a tough sell. So I think what we try to do is just look at our actions as planting seeds. So you never know when talking to somebody, a younger person, or just anybody on the street, something you may say may resonate with them, and it's not so much important to me that I hit them with all the information. It's that seed. I want to plant the seed of critical thinking that will cause people to dig a little deeper, to do more research, to think about their actions, and to think about the future. And you just never know how that seed is going to manifest itself over the years.
Right on. I appreciate that a lot, because I feel like this is also one of those things that like it really needs to be something that's understood when you're getting involved, because I don't want to discourage anyone, but I also want people to be realistic about the how things really are going, and the possible trends of how things are going, and the culture. The last episode of Culture in Decline, I think, was a really good description of that, of the different trending of how things are going with business, and big business specifically, and how that's driving governments and industry and so on, and then how that is then driving the pollutants in our world and really screwing up our the habitability of our planet flat out. I mean, it's these types of concerns that are difficult for people to see today, and I think that's why there is as much opposition as there is when it comes to climate change and so on and so forth. But I just want people to understand that, like, it is definitely, there is so much positive possibilities that, yes, we've got all these pitfalls we have to worry about today with how the direction that things are going, but there are so many positive possibilities that are in the pipeline for our future. I mean, even like I've had a couple episodes ago, I like to mention, was Daniel Kulko. He was the R&D manager of the largest vertical farm in the world, and that's up here in right outside of Scranton, PA. And it's these sorts of ideas that I think are very positive and really life-affirming when you consider how much the whole idea of sustainable technology and systems of sustainability can really reshape our world and end the poverty around the planet when these ideas are expanded upon properly. It's just that it's going to take a long time before we get there. Unfortunately, the World Bank isn't exactly handing out loans right and left where it's needed in order for it to get to that point, unfortunately. Whereas we have to get people to get that information out to them and help them understand that without this knowledge, they might not, our politicians probably don't even know about a lot of these things because they run in certain circles where they may have never heard of the Zeitgeist movement or something as simple as vertical farming.
Yeah, and I think we're also at a very dangerous time. We've got lots of folks working on some great technology, but there's a very real and present danger that that kind of technology is either going to be suppressed or co-opted by large corporations. So I think it's important that as we're having the technology discussion, that we're also talking about the broader value shift. That this technology isn't released in such a way that is placed to the hands of the powers or doesn't reach the folks that need the services the most. So I think that's just another angle that Zeitgeist gets it right, and something that we should be continually interjecting into the technological conversation.
Yeah, there's this one thing that they had happened. There was an issue with what do you call them, like SNAP or EBT cards or something like that, and they were able to use it at a Walmart and without a maximum, and they just went crazy and bought all sorts of stuff like mad, and some of those people are, I'm assuming, getting in trouble for fraud and such. But I mean, the point is that when we talk about the free society of giving out all this food for free from vertical farms, or even if we wind up with a sustainable way of a renewable vegetable plastic, we can get oils from vegetables and then take that oil and turn it into plastic, and then use that plastic and turn it into whatever we want out of, say, a 3D printer, and having the ability to just consume as much as you want is not really the ethic that you can have going into something into the future that we're trying to create here. We need to change our value system when it comes to our consumption patterns, and the idea of having 3 yachts and stuff like that is not just unsustainable, but in at a certain point it becomes outright ecocidal and maybe even genocidal, depending on how far you want to take that level of overconsumption being a part of the problem.
Couldn't agree more with that.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I just said I couldn't agree more with that.
Do you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to throw out there? I feel we're coming up around the end of the hour, and I'd like to personally thank you guys for coming on as well and giving us a good start and impression of what people can expect. I really appreciate that. I think it's definitely something that's needed for the movement and to help keep us going in the right direction, as well as let people understand some of the things that I plan on trying to help with when it comes to other people wanting to be a part of the movement. I'm not looking to really be a leader myself, but I'm definitely looking to help direct traffic when it comes to coordinating how our chapter is going. So definitely, please, guys, if you could throw out some final thoughts, I'd really love to hear them.
So first, thanks for having us, Kevin. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk, and sort of to the points that we were making earlier about always finding ways to approach the information. That doesn't always necessarily mean essentially different topics. Different forms of media, such as a radio show, is obviously another great form. So that kind of creativity is exactly what the movement needs. Looking for people to come up and start generating as much content as possible. We think that these are obviously all things we spoke about earlier that really help to spread the ideas and to get people interested and to keep them engaged. So thanks for having us, as well as thanks for having the program itself. And best of luck with the chapter.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Jarrett?
So I guess I'll just put out a general call to action for the folks in Philly. We need you. We need your help. We need your resources. We need your ideas. We need your energy, and we need your positivity. I think Zeitgeist really is one of the few organizations that gets it right, that sees the forest for the trees. And I'm excited to see that even a couple years now since the release of our last documentary, that the movement continues to grow, that we're finding new avenues of getting our information out, like the Netflix thing that happened this year has been fantastic. And would just challenge the Philly folks to really get active in this. It can be a blast. It can be super rewarding, and it can lead to some of the most engaging conversations that you'll ever have. So I want to say thank you to you, Kevin, as well, for having us. It's been a real pleasure. I think between Philly and Baltimore is about an hour up or down 95. I would love to see more sympathetic events between our chapters.
Yeah, right on. I'd like to do a larger event either by the end of the year or for Z-Day next year, and it would definitely be fun to have you guys as a part of it. I'd also like to throw out another thank you to all of my listeners. I've been extremely impressed by the number of downloads that I've gotten on this podcast. It's kind of blown me away. Like, I wasn't expecting this to kind of explode the way it did. The first couple episodes had a couple hundred each of downloads, so thank you everyone on that. The Mark Passio episode was the highest generated one and has had almost 1,000 downloads already, and that was all on natural law, and we talked a lot about property rights as well in that, and I've just been shocked at the amount of downloads of this podcast that have come along. It's really been a pleasure to get back into doing this again. So you're welcome, guys, for the invite and coming on. And seriously, thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'm not really sure what else to say other than, these guys are right. Anyone that's really listening, and if you're in the neighborhood of either the Maryland group or Philadelphia, please get in touch with us. What was your site again? It was just tzmmd.com?
tzmmd.com, correct.
There you go. And you can email me at zeitgeistphiladelphia@gmail. We've also got a Zeitgeist Philadelphia WordPress, and you can find the Zeitgeist chapter, Zeitgeist Philadelphia chapter on Facebook as well. And thanks again, everyone, for listening in. And keep this ball rolling. Like, keep moving forward, everyone. Have a good one. Have a nice night.
Take care.
Cheers, Kevin.
Bye, guys.